or at least reacts to them that way. But I have such respect for the parade. The saddest part is each year they read the list and toll the bell about who's passed away. In the past year, I think the number was 30 plus last year. So, but the parade itself has maintained the quality. Still, the units want to march here. And after some years where attendance really was down, I definitely saw an uptick in the not just the attendance, but in the alertness. And the biggest applause that I saw was to the veteran units. And probably the second biggest were the youth movements. I mean, there must have been 1,000 or 2,000 Maxinaway kids and everybody else. And the people have just a lot of love for these things. And then having the Hurricanes, that marching band, which is I think world class.
I love the Shriners. I love to see the
Shriner.
Shriners. You see the little cars with the hats. I love it. It's all, you know what it is? It's about community and caring for each other. And whether it's North Haven or any of the towns where people have gone out today to vote, where you see people caring about their communities and enjoying the privileges that we have as Americans, it warms the heart. At least that's how I feel.
And that comes from the top down of leadership.
For sure.
I pay taxes in other towns, and I am not pleased with how things are done. You drive down into the most prominent corner in one of these towns, the weeds on the sidewalk are 2 feet high.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot to fix that.
To mow your lawn, right?
Take out a weed whacker.
Yeah.
I just, if I was on the public works truck, I'd say stop the truck and take the weed whacker out and do it. Mike Fried is the guy that if there's a bench on the green that is dilapidated, he calls public works to say, replace it. And they do. So it's just it's an attitude.
Yes, it's an attitude
of caring about your community. And again, that's from the top down and the bottom up. I've been living in this town almost 30 years, and I know some wonderful people. The neighborhoods, that I've lived in, everybody helps each other, and it's part of what we do here.
And if there is one house that might stick out that's kind of gotten a little run down or somebody's not living in it, it isn't very long before that house gets purchased or renovated. It's just like it makes sense to do that in North Haven because of the value of the property itself. From having it be run down to bringing it up to snuff, it makes economic sense. Whereas in another town, it would be like, oh, that neighborhood's just like, why bother? And so here, I think we don't have that. And that's something to be very proud of.
And I also sit on the Blight Committee.
Yeah, you do.
Here.
You do that, Steve.
And we've cleaned up, I think the number's like 600 houses since it was first come, I think it's about a dozen years. And it's about helping people. Yeah. So, a lot of elderly people can't take care of their homes.
They need help.
So we try to coordinate some services with them just to help them out. And at some point, it just makes sense. And if you're living next to a house that's dilapidated, well, it's bringing down the value of your house.
Absolutely.
So it's a matter of bringing up the entire community.
Yeah. This is a question for the producer. Can you give us an idea of how things are going and when we might have that?
I just heard in my ear that they're still waiting for numbers, so we have to be a little more patient to see if we can get those numbers.
A little more light on our feet.
Because we are hoping that Mike Frieda will join our broadcast, but I guess he can't join it until everybody's been accounted for.
For sure.
You want to know the results for sure.
Right. And we've had some years where it was getting into the next day, just about. And I didn't expect this would be one of them, but who knows?
Well, they want to get the numbers right. So they're probably, I'm sure, tabulating as we speak.
Yeah. And I also want to give a mention that NHTV is quite an asset to this town. And I know, other towns around it have systems, but nothing that comes as close to the number of programs that people did here. I know you were chatting earlier. How many shows did you do here?
Walt and I were talking about it. We think it's definitely over 100. Whatever it was definitely over 100 shows. So I've been in the studio for many years. So it's been a few years since I've been here. So.
Well, we've got to get you back doing that, Steve.
Well, I enjoy it. I mean, it's a lot of fun being on here with you guys. So, but it's a great resource. We're very fortunate again to have had this one particular gentleman, Walt Mann,
yes,
helming things here for us for so many years, and helping it to grow. And so many people have passed through here who have gone on their way to professional jobs in the industry as a result of the training they got with him here. So. We just got to be very grateful for NHTV.
I know I'm certainly grateful to be able to do my TV show here. Walter has been wonderful helping me with it, and the state directors that I've had have been just super terrific in terms of helping me to get my message out for nonprofits. So it's allowed me to do something that I enjoy doing, but I also, where else would I? You need a studio. You need a system.
Right.
And I also think that a lot of our folks maybe listening need to realize that NHTV could certainly use a little bit more financial support. It used to be that if you had cable service, there was a little fee on there that went into towns, and now a lot of people are streaming and dreaming or whatever the heck it is they're doing, and the money isn't there. So folks that are listening, if you want to make a contribution to NHTV, I think you'd be doing a very good thing, because it is an asset for the town. And we wouldn't be able to have had our wonderful Memorial Day parade on TV if it wasn't for NHTV. Or just knowing what's going on with the Board of Education or the Police Commission or the Fire Commission. You could turn on your television and see that, or you can go to the website at NHTV and see that. So I think it's worth supporting.
Yeah, it's a town where if you want to be in the know, there are many ways, including the weekly paper and stuff like that. A lot of places don't really care about it, but I see there's several newspapers serving this community in one place or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know when the results are coming in, but
if I could, Ken, let me just jump in with a topic I think we all agree on. The boys' football team is just incredible. I mean, obviously, I'm not a follower of them specifically, but the season they're having is one that should be written about in a book, because between what they went through, like at the beginning of the season, and then I think they've beaten 2 top 10 teams already, and the season isn't even over. So let me just give a shout out to the men and the young men and everyone involved with our boys football program, because it's like they know what to do. I mean, let me just say it's something to make you very proud of their success. So I'm sure, Steve, you and I could agree about this, but it's impressive. So.
And doesn't the high school band still play for football games? I know when my kids were involved with the music program, they would have to go, and Ken Tedeschi would have them play during football games. I don't know that they still
I apologize.
do that.
I've not been to a game in years, so I'm not going to speak to that,
either.
but it wouldn't surprise me. The
little genie in my ear says the high school band still does play, so that's good. Because you see, then it gets more than just the moms and dads that are watching their kids play football. Now you've got the high school band involved, and it brings more people to the games. And the fact that the young men are doing such a great job, in addition to being something proud of, again, it creates community. It builds community. And that's another wonderful thing that we could talk about for the town of North Haven. Right. So many things that we have going on that build community. It's just like our summer concert series. Mike has expanded that. Right. And now I understand that they're going to create a permanent band shell. Instead of just having, is that going to be another wonderful asset for the town of North Haven, to have a band shell where our summer program, the high school kids can come and play their summer concerts for us? I think it's a wonderful aspect of life in North Haven, for sure.
Yeah, no argument.
Yeah, no argument.
But don't tell too many people.
Don't tell too many people. Why not? Why not? God, come on.
No.
We can't brag. I think we can brag. Yeah.
So back to the development situation, are there any major projects that are at least being thought about, or they're already on the drawing boards?
There's probably 60 or 80
Whoa.
projects, and I'm not at liberty to speak on them, but Mike has always got his irons in the fire, and he's focused on the north side of Route 5, the north end of Route 5, to bring in some significant tenants, and developers are now negotiating, with some pretty good tenants. So that's all I could say at the moment.
Yeah. I'll just add that we're always looking for ways to collaborate, and right now we're at the early stages of trying to develop a project that would span the North Haven, New Haven line down in the Monterey section of town. Again, like Steve said, can't talk about details, but it's an exciting project which, if it comes to fruition, will create lots of taxes and lots of jobs.
Nice.
So
Wonderful.
it's something to keep your fingers crossed about.
Good. Well, maybe next time we get together, we could talk about it for
Right,
real.
right. So,
I think we're shortly going to get some
numbers?
Some numbers.
Well, that'd be
Not
nice.
sure what. I don't know. Is there a football game tonight?
it's a Tuesday night, Ken. I don't think
Yeah,
anybody
no,
plays
we don't have
football
that
on a
yet.
Tuesday
Well,
night.
what-
Tuesday's one of those.
If they do, I'm not sure who they
What
are.
about the?
No, it's probably the only night of the week that they don't.
Right.
What about the talk of getting rid of Thanksgiving football for the?
I heard
high
about
school?
that. I heard about that. There's two sides said, isn't there? About not having a high school football game on Thanksgiving Day.
I have not heard that, but I think it should continue the tradition.
That's what some of the people say, that they don't want them to, they might not
Some
want
results.
them to be able to spend more time with their families. But let's face it, hey, everybody, we all know moms make Thanksgiving. So as long as we know that, we'll let the
Some
guys
dads
play
too,
football.
by the way.
Well, some, but come on, by and large, we know moms make
Okay,
Thanksgiving.
we've got some results.
Okay, we've got some numbers here. Oh,
These
now
are
I have to put on my glasses.
Unofficial results, unless you want to zoom in on the picture here, you gotta.
Why don't I
Ken,
let
you
you
can
do
do
that
that. He's
because
tech savvy. He can
you
do that.
are
Or you
from-
want Steve to do that? We
Let
can.
me see.
I'll expand it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to check. I do have some totals here,
Okay.
and that. Now it's hard to interpret. The
Yeah, I
total
guess-
vote, 3,500 or so, in district for first selectman. I'm going to turn it over.
Let's
partly
Steve
to
do it.
the-
It's his
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
Let's let Steve deal with
let's
it.
let
and
Steve do
then,
that.
All right.
Let Steve help us
So-
out, Steve.
District 1, first selectman, obviously. There's nobody. So I'm just looking at on row A. Second selectman, total of 1,358 votes.
That would be for Sally.
Correct. And Bill Piper, 2,510. Mike Frieda, 3,518 votes, but obviously unopposed. Town clerk, tax collector, Stacy Arborough is unopposed with, gotta follow this, 3,286 votes. Town treasurer, Rodriguez, 1,186 votes. And Don Clark, 2,721 votes. Board of Finance, Barrett, 1,411 votes. Doheny, 2,574 votes. Board of Finance still, Ahern, 1,228 votes. And Zebrano, 2,511 votes. Board of Finance, unopposed, Bob Hannon, 2,314 votes. Board of Ed, Mansur, 1,398 votes. Where are we? Board, I'm sorry, this is hard to keep track of. Adele, 2,417 votes. Gabrielle, 1,399. and Soleimani 2,495. Again, Moore on the Board of Ed, 596 votes, where Rudnick has 1,896 votes. Board of Assessment Appeals, Fox, 1,362 votes, Andrews, 2,665 votes.
These are just the Republicans.
No, there's both.
No, she's reading off the sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Okay, Board of Assessment Appeals, Fletcher's unopposed with 2,819 votes. Planning and Zoning, Quick has 872 votes, where Wayman 1,435. Unopposed, Cummings with 1,550 votes on the Republican side, and unopposed, Triana with 1,681 votes. Zoning Board of Appeals, Sharma with 235 votes, Clark with 782. Zoning Board of Appeals alternates, Lewin with 286 votes, and Nielsen with 751 votes. Coppola unopposed with 814 votes. When you're talking about police commissioner, Caldefor, 295 votes. Wilson, 721 votes. Fire Commissioner Caldwell, 256 votes. Mulligan, 758 votes. And Fire Commissioner 2 is Brown with 451 votes. That's what I got.
Okay.
So it looks like red across the board.
Does it look totally normal?
Say that again, please.
Totally normal, or is there any surprise in there?
I don't see any surprises, especially in the unopposed ones. No surprises at all.
What does that say about the total number of people who came out to vote tonight?
We're
today?
looking at, it looks like 100% of the vote counted for selectmen, but right now we're looking at about 65 to upwards of 100. So,
Well, it sounds like about 4,500 votes.
yeah, so the,
Yeah, that's what I was
I
getting
mean, you're
at.
basically, the Republicans have somewhere between 36 and going on
Yeah,
down,
so here-
and Democrats are like 1,300 on down, so you've got roughly 4,900 votes.
Okay.
about 28 or so
And
percent.
I think we have 15 or 16,000 voters, so that's,
Yeah, about
Around
28%.
to your point, about 28, 29% of the
Okay, well, for an off-year election, you
Yeah.
know, that's,
Yeah.
that's how it goes, I guess. I think most towns in Connecticut are experiencing a similar kind of turnout, maybe even less.
Well, it also looks as though the national picture and all of the reportage about the national picture isn't having any effect here. It really is politics as local.
Right.
For here.
Well, it is true. I mean, I think we said earlier that contested elections and/or issues tend to drive turnout. And to the extent that, as Steve was pointing out, a lot of positions are uncontested, and that we don't have any particular issues that we've been discussing as a community over the last couple of years, it makes sense that the turnout would not exceed sort of historical norms, is what I would say.
Agreed.
And I'm wondering from our producers, any word on a visitor coming in at any particular time? Is that still on the...
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Your little birdie again?
It's going to be a surprise,
Yeah.
Ken. If you
Bird in
don't,
my
if you
ear.
tell people about it, it won't be a surprise.
Well,
I'm kidding you.
No,
Kidding.
it's just some of those years where
Yeah.
we stayed till the last vote was counted a couple times, which I think we've...
Was that a national election? or
No,
was that
on
local?
here.
Oh, really?
You know, I think with the congressional races, those years were tough sometimes.
I
and
see.
our technology tonight is a little different also.
Okay, I think that our guest is on his way.
Oh, very good.
So we get to chitter-chatter a little bit more
Oh, that's good. That's a
before
good
the man
sign.
of the hour arrives.
And if I could just actually, because I do work the elections quite often, I'm an assistant registrar at Ridge Road School quite often, the process is actually somewhat time consuming. You think, well, it's all on computer, it's all going to come out right away, and there's a process you go through to close down the election site.
The voting machines.
Well, the voting and the people that are doing the work, the ones who are crossing your names off, their books have to prove, in essence, they have to make sure that their numbers add up in terms of the votes that were cast versus the number of names they were crossed off. If they're too far apart, there's an issue.
There's something wrong.
So
yeah.
you deal with those employees or those workers first. You get their numbers to balance, and then you excuse them, and then you move to the machines. But in many of our polling places, there's more than one machine. Green Acres probably only has one machine. I won't speak to that, but it's possible. I will tell you at Ridge Road you have two. I think you have at least two at Clintonville. So the point is you have to run the tape, so to speak, for both machines before you can report the numbers from Ridge Road, say, or Clintonville. So I think people obviously are impatient to get results, and they think, well, it must be because it's on computer, it can be right away. Well, they're still human beings at every step of the process.
For sure.
Making sure there's no funny business, making sure that everything works out. So, and then when the ballot is quite long, as it is today, in fact, it's one of the longest when we have municipal races, it takes a lot of math to make sure you're adding up all the candidates across all 5 precincts plus AB. So, just to share that with the public who's watching, in case you're curious, why does it take so long?
Good
It's
insight.
because you have to make sure that it's done right. I mean, I think we're proud of the fact that we all work together to get numbers we all can believe in. We don't have some of the issues you were mentioning, Ken, in other places, so we can stand behind the numbers here in North Haven when we get them. But it does mean it takes a few extra minutes.
So we'll just be patient. It gives me a chance to tell you
Yeah.
a story about me. I learned how to cheat elections when I was in college in Philadelphia. I had an internship with the Committee of 70. This was a nonprofit organization for honesty in government and elections. And they trained us to spot cheating. So they showed us how to cheat. And one of the biggest ways in Philadelphia was so many of the machines were in like barbershops, little trade places. And there were ways to, the curtains close. And they taught us how to tie little knots so that they wouldn't close all the way. So that the people who promised the $5 or the shot of whiskey could check whether you did or didn't do it. And they also could get a good account of how things were going, just in case they needed to add a little incentive to do
Wow.
those things. And so I want to make it clear, I wasn't there to cheat. I was there to detect
learn how they
cheating,
do it?
and then we would call in to somebody, and he would say, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because I can see, what they're doing depending on what the machine did." And in those days,
Wow.
you had those party tickets.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you just
Right.
pulled
The
one
party
little
lever.
thing down, and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of votes went a lot of places.
Yep.
And
Very
sometimes
interesting.
people were promised a job or something if they, just something if they voted the way they were supposed to. My grandfather was a committee man in a ward, and I remember people would come to his house and say, "I need a job for my grandson," or this and that. And he would say, "Well, how you been voting these days?" And well, I'm willing to change my vote. And the committeemen were really, they were pretty influential. And we did have, back in those days, there were Republicans who became mayor as well as Democrats.
When was that?
1950s.
Yes. Celentano was in New Haven at the time. And
Wow.
I remember when
thankfully, we don't have that situation.
We don't have that
pertaining
situation
today.
today, no.
I do remember.
And we went away from the old machines because they
Would they
had problems
Had
and-
problems.
yeah.
They got all tied up in knots.
right, among other things.
Very good.
Among other things.
I just look back on those days, not longingly in any sense, but how publicly it was corrupt. I mean, other people in the room knew what was going on,
Right.
et cetera. But I look back now, and you don't have any of those machines anymore.
No, I mean, we actually phased them out about 20 years ago because the company or companies that made them stopped making them and stopped making replacement parts for them, and they started to break.
Okay.
And but what we found actually at the time too was not only were the machines breaking, but they were inconsistent, shall we say?
Inconsistent.
So what you found was it was actually easy to jam them or otherwise have problems with the count. And so one of the nice things about the system we currently have is that it's a bubble sheet like you fill out when you go through standardized testing when you're in school, goes into a machine, reads the bubbles. There are a few here or there, a few ballots that may need to be checked, but the bottom line is it's much more accurate and much quicker than the old system. So.
I also was involved with the Committee of 70 in a little something we used to do that actually made the newspapers. The city would report the final numbers and add them up and do things like that. And my boss said, I want you to check the math. I'm going to be a journalist. What are you asking me to do math? And this is all before computers and things like that. He says, no, I want to make sure there weren't any mistakes in certain of the totals. And I was just beside myself, but it was a good internship. So I went to City Hall in Philadelphia, William Penn up on top looking down on us, and I got the ledgers that they were using to write the numbers in after they checked the machines. And I added up this column, and I said, it doesn't add up to what they published. I mean, somebody took all those numbers, wrote it in, and then wrote the total. They didn't add it up, and I'm going,
They made up the numbers? They made up the numbers?
They did something, and I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm this little college guy. I called my boss, and I said, I'm telling you that there's a mistake. And Arlen Specter, who was the DA, I don't know if he was running for mayor, he was running for something, but Arlen Specter got cheated out of, believe it or not, 70 votes, coincidentally for the Committee of 70. And he said, are you sure? And I said, I'm sure. So he came over to City Hall, and he said they made a mistake, and he figured right away where they made the mistake. And I might have been the Philadelphia Bulletin or the Inquirer wrote, Committee of 70 finds 70 votes for Arlen Specter.
One for each of you.
And they didn't credit the intern who discovered that.
How easily forgot.
But it is that's pretty. It wasn't a close election, but it does show you how the machine, it wasn't the last stop on that route. It went through human hands, human minds, and I don't think they were really trying to steal 70. Well, coincidentally, they did. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and I've never covered. There are some cities in this state that are known for certain erratic behaviors when it comes to the machines and everything else.
Well, and then we've got cameras watching people, so the technology has come so far that we can, if we really want to, know what's going on. We really can, and I think that's the difference, is that there are hopefully, and we'll continue checks and balances on these things, so that the people who deserve to be elected are elected, and North Haven doesn't have any problems in that regard. I mean, we just don't, and it's a good thing. It's just a very good thing.
Yeah.
So have any of you ever been involved in election misbehavior? Not involved in it, but have you ever suspected anything?
Elections
Well, actually, just as an aside, I can mention, because it is a historical fact, that the first time that I ran for state representative in 1994, there was a challenge that the town clerk had in counting the votes that were cast, such that she erroneously reported that I had won, when in fact I had not, because she was adding the wrong votes to my totals and the totals of my opponent. So it was one of those things where I went to bed after a long day and I unplugged my phone. Just a quick true story. I unplugged my phone so I can just go to sleep and I don't have to get bothered. My parents come to my apartment and start banging on the door to wake me up. And they say, you won, you won. And I said, no, I didn't win. I didn't win. He said, no, trust me, you did win. The town clerk said you won. And I said, I don't think I won. Anyway, then the next morning, I get a call from the Speaker of the House saying, congratulations, you won. And I said, thank you, but I'm not sure I won. Long story short, that day, they do a recount, and they discover the error that's been made, and they fix the error. And so I end up, of course, losing because I had known that I had lost, but the numbers needed to be checked. So it's just sort of an example, and this again with the old machines, but human beings doing the count. And so if you're not careful about what you're doing, you can make a mistake.
Nothing intentional.
Right, completely inadvertent, right. Yeah. No, trust me, the town clerk at the time was a lifelong and diehard Republican. She was not making a mistake in my favor, but seriously, she was taking her job very seriously, so I knew that she would do what she needed to do to follow the process and make sure that the right result pertained. But the point was, it was nothing intentional about it. It was clearly, it was just a function of, as we were describing, taking the right votes for the right candidates from the right polling places and trying to put them all together at the end of a very long day. I mean, what many people don't appreciate is
how long a day it is.
Yeah, the polls open at 6, but poll workers start at 5.
Wow.
And if you start at 5, you got to get up probably at 4. So if you're the town clerk or the registrar of voters in town hall, you've been up a long time by the time the votes get counted at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So you can understand why people might make some inadvertent errors. The good news is it was caught, and I could say that because I said even though it didn't inure to my personal benefit, I knew that I hadn't won, and she fixed the results so that way the election was cured or remedied in that sense. But the point is that Ken, to your question, that was my brush with inadvertent number counting issues.
Yeah.
So.
Where's AI when you need it?
Well,
I'm not.
This is 1994. We didn't have the internet then.
Boy. And when you unplugged your phone, it was your house phone.
It was my landline. That's right. I took the back of the phone.
And you unplugged it.
I did, yeah. I was tired. I didn't want to be bothered by anybody calling.
Yeah, congratulations or not, or whatever. It's just I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
How many more elections before you won?
Well, the next time I won, 96, I won. The numbers were done correctly. There was no issues with the count or the results. So that began my career as state representative.
Did they have a new clerk?
No, same clerk. But I would have to imagine
extra eyes.
That she was focused very carefully on making sure that everything was done properly. So.
Well, that's a great story, Steve.
Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah.
No, not only did I enjoy it, and the fact that people really do want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
In some places.
Yeah, well, in most, I think in most instances.
I have faith in humanity
Yeah.
that I think people generally want to be good.
Okay.
Some people are clunkers, however.
Yeah.
Our numbers are now wonderfully on the board.
Oh, wow.
And here we have Green Acres.
Okay.
And I think as we see, there are really no surprises with the numbers. We are looking at Clintonville School now, where Tim Doheny has beaten Nancy Barrett.
And this is for the Board of Finance, I believe.
I do believe that is true. Yeah. And there are the totals.
Right.
So we're looking at 25, 35, 4,000 votes in that one.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Look at that. Now this is the votes from the rec center. This is where I vote.
So a little over 1,000 votes.
So I guess do some people just skip a line, or they only vote for the
Ridge Road was relatively close. 609 to 519.
Yeah, just because you're allowed to vote for a certain number of candidates doesn't mean that you must vote for that number of candidates.
Right, you could just ignore it if you wish.
You can vote for fewer or none.
Right.
So sometimes there are ballots that are only partially completed.
Okay, so that doesn't invalidate the ballot if you just if you don't. Okay.
Right.
We're also noticing that this time around, absentee ballots are not an issue. It's just not something that.
Either that, either they didn't cast any, or you don't have the results. One or the other.
Oh, okay. That's
Typically,
a good
there
point.
are a small number in North Haven. You don't see
even on an off year, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, people are out of town and do want to vote. I know some families take vacation, believe it or not, on election day because it's, I think, a professional development day for the teachers, so they get a long weekend out of it. Some people are sick and don't want to come out of their home. Other people they're working the entire day. So I think you typically will see a small number
Of
of absentees on, a few dozen, let's say. It won't be a large number, and they generally track the results of the overall vote. But if I were to bet, I would say there's probably a few dozen absentees in there somewhere.
Although with next year, with the 2024 election, I think we'll see a very different story.
Yes.
I think so too.
Yes.
More time to get a ballot?
Yes. Well, I think the General Assembly and the governor, if I'm not mistaken, have modified the process by which you can apply for absentee. In the past, you had to have a specific reason. Your absence from the town during all hours of voting, your physical incapacity or illness, your, which I think are the other reasons. You had to have a specific reason. I think they've moved it now toward
Military service.
Military
service.
So there's no excuse absentee balloting, so that way you don't have to give a reason why. You just say, I simply want to do it. Or, I believe we will be going to early voting as a state starting next year.
For 2 weeks prior.
Right. So a period of time, let's just say the polls will be open, let's just say the Saturday before election for 5 hours.
Okay.
So you won't have to vote in person on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
There'll be another day where you could vote in person.
Another day or another days, I think Steve was saying.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
Those poor poll workers.
Well, yes.
And they're going to have to create a schedule, in which to accommodate everybody, which I think is a difficult
And I think
task.
COVID had something to do with that, of creating other different opportunities for people to vote absentee and not have it be those reasons. People are getting a little leery about showing up in public places.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Still.
And I think that as a rule, we believe that we're enfranchising the public. It's your right to vote, and we want to make it as secure but as safe and flexible as possible,
Yeah,
so that
I
people
like the
who
word
have different.
flexible. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that I used to ask people why they didn't vote. And the number one reason was, they said, is not enough time. And I said, well, the polls are open for 14 hours, and if you can't make it to the polls, you can get an absentee ballot.
And what did they say to that?
It's too much work.
Yeah.
Too much work. And I
Which
said,
just
well,
wasn't important to them then, right?
right. Well, I think to the extent that we can capture or catch some of those people who perhaps are too busy or don't want to go through the process of doing absentee, which is a little cumbersome, let's be honest. I think a certain amount of early voting would be a good thing. I think no excuse absentee balloting is a good thing. So
Yeah, I would agree with that.
give people more options.
Give people more options,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm wondering if our producers might get an ETA
Yes, yes, we do.
for our guest.
Our guest is still making his way over.
Let's hope that's what's happening.
Yes.
I
The
see,
little genie in the air has assured me that is.
Oh, okay.
That is the case.
Because I see
But we're
it's-
still looking at numbers, and they're all making very good sense, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, they're all very consistent. with
Very
each other.
consistent.
And the time is 911, so that's the number to call if you have a problem not related to the election. The excitement on election night when I was a kid, and this is a long time ago, and again having a grandfather who was politically active at a time when there was a lot of skullduggery, but there was a lot of whiskey involved in those days. I mean, they actually, you got your shot, and in some communities it wasn't $5, it was maybe $2. But for some people back then, that was incentive, especially if they really
got paid to vote?
Yes. But they had to vote the right way. That's where my little cheater.
That's where
Yeah.
they had to vote the right way.
Correct. It was worth
Or
a shot.
maybe the left way.
In those days, I don't think we had left and right. We had Republican and Democrat, socialist. In Philadelphia, it was actually a party with candidates in various places. It's it was complicated back then, and now it's, I don't know. I remember going as a reporter up to the Capitol for the reading of the ballots, tallying them up, and then they would have took an hour in some cases for the write-ins. And guess who always, every year that I went, won the write-ins?
I would have to
None
say
of the above.
or the incumbent.
Mickey Mouse.
That's funny.
There we
How
go.
times have
Okay.
changed.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's
And Donald,
funny.
it was Mickey Mouse,
Yes,
Donald
duh.
Duck, and then there were, your best friend or something, a whole bunch of things that we couldn't identify. Wait a minute.
Looks to me like we have a
Door closing
guest.
from the other side. Oh my goodness.
Here he is.
Okay.
Hey everybody. Hey Steve.
How are you?
Good evening.
Steve,
Good
how are you?
evening.
Good, how are you?
Good. I love that guy, Steven.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
and we have the background to match,
Oh, very good.
the colors and everything.
love
Mike
you.
Frieda
I love you.
is
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and we had some technical issues through the night, and it resulted in Mike being in person. Can we put a good light on him?
Yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah, give us a few seconds. Do you want the makeup or just?
I need a lot of makeup. So
No.
Not at all, not at all.
What did you think of the turnout today?
You know, I think District 1 is still on the verge of coming in, so I'm not sure what the total turnout is tonight
Okay.
in terms of percentages. Now, normally the state average is about 41%. So it'd be interesting to me to see what this turnout is. I'm very grateful to have been running unopposed, but sometimes that takes the turnout down, ladies and gentlemen. And that's something I think we have to watch for, because as all of us would agree, that the right to vote is such a precious right. You know, all of us here, we support our veterans. We have veterans who fought for that right. So we really want to see strong turnouts at the local level. And I think we'd all agree also, and people talk about this even at the state level, that it's at the local, where really the rubber meets the road, where things can get done with an elimination of bureaucracy. So I hope the turnout is at least what the average would be, 41%.
The earliest assessment we had was almost 30% earlier in the day.
Okay, good.
And from what we were seeing here in the various races, there was it looked like a good turn to what's been happening in other places.
That is good to hear, Ken. That really is. So, of course, I'm watching not only our race, but I have many of my colleagues who are up for re-election, men and women who I'm very close with, that we work together on a regional basis. So I'm really watching to see how those races turn out also. And what that means for North Haven resident is that in my case, now completing my 7th term, I'm involved with a lot of boards and commissions. I chair some of the state boards and commissions. I've been a 2-time chairman of the Council of Governments. So we work very closely together regionally. So what sometimes gets overlooked or unnoticed is that when the complexion of the chief elected officials changes, it adds a dynamic into the equation where in the beginning it's not as fluid in terms of working together regionally. So I'm curious to see how many of my colleagues make out tonight.
Are there any particular issues or concerns that you have for the next 2 years?
I have a very big concern, Ken, and it's a concern that, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm fed up with, I'm disgusted, and we're not going to take it anymore. And it's the rising crime here in North Haven. And last night, as an example, we hosted a community meeting with over 100 people. And some of the stories we heard about what's happening, not only with car break-ins, but the brazen aspect of some of the criminals that now have targeted North Haven. So I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to continue to fortify public safety here, support the police department, add more officers this year. And right now, what we're doing is we're increasing patrols late at night by giving overtime to additional police officers. I believe that the fundamental responsibility of any chief elected official is to ensure the safety of the residents living in the community. Now, I'm a big proponent of supporting education, which I will continue to do. As everyone knows, I'm involved with every single economic development project in town. We have a degree of services that people like. Leaf collection, we just started that. We're the only municipality that does this.
Love it.
So those core services are very important. But to answer Ken's question again, public safety, eliminating crime, and creating consequences for criminals that dare come into North Haven, Connecticut. That's my biggest priority right now.
Who do you need most on your side to accomplish that?
I think it's a collaboration. It's a collaboration of us locally. To give you an example of that, we just had a regional mayor's press conference with the police chiefs from all over the area. And I was with the mayor of New Haven. Steve works for New Haven in the economic development department, so he knows Justin Elliker. So this was a bipartisan gathering, Republicans and Democrats. We all spoke. And this press conference was designed to address another problem that we have. And that problem, ladies and gentlemen, is street takeovers. We're seeing it all over the state of Connecticut,
Street takeovers.
where ATVs are coming into our cities and towns, and they're taking the streets over. Now, my wife Shirley and I, we saw this actually happen. We're coming off 91 North. This is back in July. And we stopped, and Route 22 was taken over.
Oh.
And to see these people on these bikes pointing at our residents, pointing at cars, almost daring them to cut across. So here's what we're doing. We've created a regional task force, and it's going to be unfolding this way. Any street takeover that we see as chief elected officials or police chiefs in this region, which encompasses about 10 or 12 municipalities, our police department and mayors and first selectmen, we've created this task force. There will be SWAT teams going into these different cities and towns to stop these street takeovers. Now, we know that we can't, from a policing standpoint, take and stop 300 ATVs. But the strategy is going to be, we're going to pick off 6, 7, 8 at a time. We're going to confiscate those ATVs for those people coming in and trying to take over our streets. We're not only going to confiscate the ATVs, we're going to issue fines, and we're going to take the ATVs and have them crushed, ladies and gentlemen, literally crushed, to go into the scrap heap. And we hope regionally
That'll stop it.
that over the course of time, that will deter and stop this from happening. And those are the consequences I was talking about earlier. That's something that we can do. And this has been publicized in the newspapers. The press conference was covered by Channel 8, WFSB, Fox News, locally 61, and NBC. And that's what we're doing. That's the number one problem right now.
Mike, I was wondering, how can the citizens of North Haven help in these endeavors? Should they feel empowered to call certain numbers, to give information? How can we as citizens help the town and the police department with the crime issue and the street takeovers?
That's a great question, Bernadette, and here's the answer. And last night was a good example. There's always something called neighborhood watches, right? So what we described last night, and to answer Bernadette's question, ladies and gentlemen watching on NHTV, that we want a community watch. We'd like to ask the residents to be vigilant, to be aware of what's happening at night in particular, or even during the day. Have a sense of acute self-awareness. Anything you see, any suspicious activity, report it to the police department. I can guarantee you that our police department will respond in a 5-minute fashion at the outset, because we need more intel, to use that word. For those that have Ring cameras, share the footage with the police department. Share any footage you have, any information. If you can get license plates, whatever the information is, that will help. So if we envision North Haven as a close community, put aside the concept of neighborhood watch embrace the concept of community watch. All of us, all 24,500 citizens. You see something? Report it, and our police will respond. And as all that's happening, we'll be fortifying our police department with more patrols and more officers in next year's budget.
Speaking of the budget, how will you be able to hold the line?
Largely can through economic development. So I try to take a page out of my business career. The more you can grow the top line revenue, the more you can reinvest back into the corporation. That was my philosophy in corporate America. So I look at government as a similar model. We're not a corporation, we're a government. But the more we can grow the top line revenue through bringing in new businesses that bring incremental taxes into the town, we can reinvest back in the town of North Haven, the corporation, the government of the town of North Haven. Without economic development, it's difficult to reinvest. Now, also on the expense side, we watch every line item, and we really watch it closely. Most recently, I had a ratings call with S&P 500. These are some of the smartest financial people in the world, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm happy to report that for the 6th consecutive year, we've been re-rated AAA with S&P 500, which is characterized by the rating agencies as the gold standard of financial management for a municipality.
Mike, what could you tell us about the quality of life here in North Haven and some of the things that enrich the lives of the citizens of North Haven? I know you and I were chatting at one point about creating a band, having a bandstand for our summer programs, and I know we're smiling, but it's part of the quality of life. What would you like to say about that for the future of North Haven?
So we've addressed the public safety issue, but the quality of life, to Bernadette's question, I believe revolves around many different things. It's the quality of our parks and recreational facilities. It's the quality of our sports fields for those children and young adults who play sports. It's embracing the arts, bringing in more people who are interested in the arts. And as Bernadette mentioned, the bandstand, it's my goal to have this permanent bandstand, which ground is being broken right now, to not only utilize that for concerts on the green, and that's part of the quality of life, and I'll get back to that in a moment. But the bandstand is designed to increase the town activities on the green. I've already contacted many art studios. They'll be using it. They'll be putting on performances, plays, and musicals. I believe that that's part of the quality of life. Paving roads. We paved another 12 miles this past year. Upgrading drainage systems to eliminate street flooding. This is all part of the quality of life. So we look at the concept, ladies and gentlemen, of quality of life. It embraces several different categories. Each category has to have attention paid to it. Infrastructure, streets, roads, drainage, parks, sports facilities. We renovated the track. We're renovating the high school girls softball field and the high school girls baseball field. We are putting more into playscapes. We're updating all playscapes for children. That's really a big part, Bernadette, of the quality of life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I really couldn't. I think that people want to live in North Haven for all those reasons. And the fact that you are addressing them with your team is one of the reasons why you were running unopposed, I think, this time around, because of how good it is to live in North Haven. Doesn't mean that we don't have room for improvement. There always is, but the town is doing a good job.
Thank you for that, Bernadette. And yet, as I know these two gentlemen know, because they work with me quite often,
A different perspective.
I'm never satisfied, and I'm not satisfied. There's more we can do. There's more, ladies and gentlemen, that we can collectively get done together. So I, for whatever the reasons, continue to be highly driven, never satisfied, and always looking to see what more we can do. I was like that in my sports career, baseball and football. I was like that in my corporate business career. I was never satisfied, and sometimes that's not good. But what it does do, it never lets the word complacency seep into, in my case, me, because I'm never satisfied, always driven to get more done. And that's how I see these next 2 years. There's a lot more we can do, working collaboratively.
And we don't need a recount tonight, right?
So has District 1 come in yet? We
Oh.
know those results?
I don't know.
I,
Are you getting something as a message?
all right. It seems to me that District 1 is having a little bit of a time lag. So rather than wait and wait and wait, we thought we would kind of wrap up our feelings for tonight and for the re-election of Mike Frieda. Steve, how would you summarize how you feel about today's election for the town of North Haven?
I think it's great. Mike is a tremendous leader, and to give him another 2 years the opportunity to continue what he's already done and grow our town, and again, raise the top line revenue, which drives everything else we do. So, thank you, Mike.
Congratulations, Mike. Obviously, you and I share a passion for economic development, so I appreciate your comments and obviously working with you on economic development. You're absolutely right. That's the way that we can keep North Haven growing. Obviously, people are very happy with the services we have, very comfortable with you personally, so congratulations on 2 years.
It's a pleasure working with both of you gentlemen. A real pleasure. So.
Really? How you feeling about this?
Well, I think it's obvious how I'm feeling. I've been talking about it all night, about how proud I am to be a resident of North Haven and the quality of life that we enjoy here. The fact that our leaves are picked up, that roads are being fixed, that arts are being brought in, that housing is going up, the new apartment building at 447 Washington Avenue. So I think tonight is just a validation of all of the good things that are happening in North Haven.
Thank you. And Mr. First Selectman, let's just get it on the record. You're not going to run for governor.
I don't think so. No.
The election was fair,
It was fair.
and
Yes.
and you'll accept the
Accept the results.
yeah, you'll accept the results. And your pride in North Haven is extraordinary. How long have you been?
This is the completion of 14 years, so I'll be entering my 8th term, my 15th year.
Any indication of how far you'll go?
I enjoy the mission. I love helping people. That is such a wonderful thing. You know, ladies and gentlemen, in my corporate career, it was about satisfying shareholders, building market share, building market share for our clients, mergers and acquisitions. I bought companies, I sold companies. But what it did not provide is the ability to help people personally. Sure, we had thousands of employees and their families had jobs, which was very important. But this job has shown me something that I realized right in the first year. That is, when people come to you with a personal issue and you can help them and you could change the course of emotions from despair to hope, and then take hope, that's a powerful transformation right there. I see a lot of people in despair. They have problems. I try to give them hope. And then if you can move hope to a positive outcome, the wide range of that emotion that I've seen from a human standpoint and a personal standpoint is very satisfying for me. I love trying to help people. So I like that part of the mission. As far as the future, well, I'm committed for the next 2 years, and we'll take it. We'll see what happens. So
Thank you.
I've turned down several jobs in the past 4 years. I'm not even looking for a job because I love these people. I love every single person in North Haven, and I will always tirelessly try to help everybody.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here at the end of a long day and a long process. And we thank you for joining us. And I guess my feeling on this is it was a little bit of election results and a lot of civics. You know, we really zeroed in on how it all works and what the benefits can be when not only things go right, but the planning for it goes right, and people really know what's up. So on behalf of NHTV, I am Ken Bennett, but
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
but I just have to say it's always a pleasure to be working with people in North Haven in particular. My envy level is so high, And one of these days, with a little help from my friends, I may get that house, on the hill. Anyway, thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you a year from now, hopefully. That'll be an interesting night.
I think it will.
And thanks also to our NHTV crew, headed by Walter Mann, who is probably without sleep for so long now that I hope he can walk out of the building on his own. But it's always a pleasure working with Walter and his people. Have a good 2023, 2024. Good night.